Well, thank you very much, Chairman Alexander, and I want to thank all of our colleagues who are joining us today and all of our witnesses who are taking time out to be with us as well. We are a few weeks into this new Congress, and I truly do hope that this committee can find some ways to work together on policies that do create jobs and expand economic security and generate broad-based economic growth for workers and families, not just the wealthiest few, but for those who are working hard every day. So I do find it really troubling that once again my Republican colleagues are putting big corporations and their profits ahead of our hardworking families. And that really is what is at the heart of today's hearing. You know, across the country today, so many workers clock in 40 hours a week, and they work really hard, and yet they are unable to provide for their families. Last fall, NBC News interviewed a woman from Kansas City named Latoya, who worked in a fast food restaurant, and she was protesting as part of a fast food workers' strike. She said that she is raising 4 children alone on $7.25 an hour. So it should go without saying that's pretty hard to make ends meet. For part of last year, she said she was living in a homeless shelter. And as she told the reporter last year, nobody should work 40 hours a week and find themselves homeless. On top of those rock-bottom wages, Latoya said she and her colleagues experienced unpaid wages, unpredictable scheduling, and have to make do with broken equipment on the job. Well, today we have too many Americans who are in those same shoes, and they are not looking for a handout. They just want to be treated fairly and get basic protections and economic security that previous generations of American workers took for granted at a time when the middle class flourished. But the labor market has changed dramatically over the past 30 years. Many businesses have begun relying on subcontracting labor to temp agencies, franchises, and other third-party sources to lower their labor costs. The parent company of a franchise can dictate pricing and store hours. It can prohibit collective bargaining, and it can monitor in real time workers' hours and staffing levels. And yet the parent company can put all the liability for poor working conditions and low wages squarely on the shoulders of its franchise owners. And without collective bargaining rights, workers have no recourse for improving those workplace conditions. And by the way, this arrangement can hurt our franchise owners. These small business owners face pressure in bidding for franchise licenses, and they struggle to manage under corporate rules. That's not good for workers, it's not good for franchise owners, and it lets some major corporations have it both ways. They can squeeze both the workers and small business owners while they make record profits. And they, by the way, get to escape all the liability for low wages and poor working conditions. When workers make poverty wages, it's federal taxpayers who end up paying the price. More than half of our fast food workers in our country today are enrolled in at least one public assistance program. Taxpayers pay nearly $7 billion a year for public assistance that helps fast food restaurant workers make ends meet. Too many big corporations are rigging the system and leaving taxpayers holding the bag. These employment arrangements, including temp agencies and franchises, are the new reality of today's labor market. But they shouldn't be the end of basic worker protections or earning a living wage. So last year, the National Labor Review Board decided to re-examine its joint employer standard to make sure it responds to the realities of today's workplace. The NLRB is currently deliberating the Browning-Ferris case, and the complaint involving McDonald's is in the very early stages of the process. Our hearing today isn't the place to debate ongoing litigation. But let's remember, by law, the NLRB is entrusted to examine and adapt the National Labor Relations Act to changing patterns in the labor market so workers can collectively bargain. So while my Republican colleagues claim that revisiting the joint employer standard is somehow an overreach, the NLRB is actually simply carrying out its duties under the law. And by law, it is supposed to adapt as the labor market changes. Still, many of our Republican colleagues are defending a precedent that allows too many major corporations to turn a blind eye to poor labor conditions, even as their workers scrape by on stagnant wages and watch as their rights are routinely denied. Instead of allowing some of the biggest corporations to rig the system against small businesses and workers, I hope that we can have a discussion about how to best expand economic security for more Americans. That's good for workers, it's good for businesses, it's good for our economy, and something we should be striving for in our work here in Congress. So I truly hope that in the future we can work together on policies that create jobs and help our workers and families benefit from broad-based economic growth. And again, I do want to thank all of our witnesses for being here today, and I look forward to this discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.